Comrade Secretary General Fikile Mbalula, former President Thabo Mbeki, members of the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress, the leadership of SANCO, COSATU, and the SACP who are here present, and the leadership of our leagues, as in the ANC Women's League, the ANC Youth League, ANC Veterans League, and the leadership of the MK Liberation War Veterans, leadership of SASCO, of COSAS, Contralesa, and a number of other allied organizations. And greetings also to deployed comrades who are here with us, as they always are when we hold our Lekgotla. Comrades, welcome to this very first and very important ANC NEC Lekgotla of 2025. As we have said previously, our Lekgotla present us with an opportunity to assess the progress that the movement has made in using state power to pursue the national democratic revolution. But it also gives us the opportunity to come up with proposals that can enhance our work both in the ANC as well as in government. Such assessments become particularly important in identifying the steps that are necessary to fundamentally transform our society to a more united, non-racial, non-sexist, and democratic and prosperous one. We gather, comrades, at a time when there are rising geopolitical tensions around the world that manifest themselves in a number of ways, some through nationalism, protectionism, isolation, unilateralism, and rising debt levels, particularly for poor countries, blatant disregard of the rule of law, and the disregard and degradation of the basic human rights of vulnerable people around the world, and increasing migration. And you can count the challenges that beset the world in many, many ways. We're also at the same time seeing an increase in regional conflicts in various parts of our own continent and the Middle East as well. All these factors combine to undermine economic and political stability in developing economy countries, and in the South African context, this is displayed in slow growth, worsened poverty, inequality, unemployment, and their attendant social consequences. We are also experiencing disasters like the deaths of illegal miners in our country, the deaths that happen through natural disasters, and many other calamities that continue to face us. Within the context of a world experiencing several crises and a country undergoing several deep-seated challenges, it is the ANC that must give leadership, working together with its alliance partners, to give leadership to society, to unite our country and our movement and address all these challenges that are facing our people. Critically, the ANC must give leadership to society in an environment where it no longer has a national majority, and leads the government of national unity with 9 other political parties. Our nation continues to be beset by the triple challenge of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. Together with other attendant social challenges such as crime, violence, gender-based violence, and self-service delivery challenges. As much as there are challenges that we must address, there are also opportunities that we need to take up to address these challenges. Forging and enhancing national unity and cohesion around a unifying vision which can be consolidated at the national dialogue stands out as a distinct objective that we must seek to achieve. In terms of addressing the material conditions of our people, there are opportunities that are offered by focusing on economic growth and also embarking on massive job-creating projects in infrastructure, industrialization, the emerging green economy, and digital technologies, and other sectors that must be leveraged to grow our economy. We need also to focus on addressing the basic needs of our people, where they live, and also address the needs of our people as they face them in health, in education, as well as in their own safety. We said when we launched our January 8th statement in Khayelitsha that because we have not yet attained the society laid out in the Freedom Charter, and because of the persistence of racism, patriarchy, inequality, and economic exclusion, the ANC must continue the struggle to advance the national democratic revolution. And the NDR, as we know, seeks to achieve, firstly, building a new nation with a new national identity of being an African country which is underpinned by non-racialism, non-sexism, and unity in diversity. And secondly, building a democratic state based on the will of the people without regard to race, class, gender, belief, language, ethnicity, and geographic location. And thirdly, building a society based on the best human values, restoring the dignity and guaranteeing the freedoms and human rights to all the people and improving their quality of life. And fourthly, building a transformed, inclusive, and thriving economy that offers opportunities and decent livelihoods to all people, including the restoration of the birthright of all South Africans with regard to access to land, to finance, to skills and other resources. Within this paradigm, the National Executive Committee declared 2025 the year of renewal to make the ANC a more effective instrument of the people to achieve the vision of the Freedom Charter, that the people shall govern, the people shall share in the country's wealth. The January 8th statement thus exhorts us to make the ANC an even more effective instrument to achieve the vision of the Freedom Charter. As we will be celebrating the adoption of the Freedom Charter later this year, decades ago. Our Lekgotla's program is in many ways structured in a manner that will enable us to address as well as to take decisive action on the following urgent and interrelated fronts: to renew and to build the ANC so it can provide decisive and ethical leadership in the resolution of our country's problems and realization of the vision of the Freedom Charter. And secondly, to improve the ability of our economy to create jobs and wealth, how we can modernize our industrial policy, including areas such as e-commerce, and focus on creating mass employment opportunities, and also deal with the issues of the digital and artificial intelligence sectors. We should also find ways to improve the quality of service for our people and ensure that local government is strengthened and accountable in all spheres. We should also come up with solutions to further tackle poverty and the high cost of living through social transformation. Investing in people in education, skills development, and health should be an overriding area of focus as well. The work of continuing to fight crime must be intensified as we continue fighting corruption, gender-based violence, and building safe communities as well. And our work to create a better Africa and a better world must be strengthened, and it must continue. There are specific tasks that our movement and the ANC-led government will have to perform over the next year to address the challenges that are facing our people. To renew and rebuild the ANC, our movement will have to embark on decisive and visible actions that are aimed at eradicating all manifestations of apartheid, colonial and patriarchal power relations. It has become increasingly clear that the ANC, having lost the trust of our people, which loss was clearly manifested through our weakened electoral outcomes, we need to take urgent and focused action to regain the trust that we have lost, failing which we will perish. There are, however, signs that we are regaining lost ground in a number of places in our country, but much work still needs to be done. Our main task is to build strong branches as vibrant centers of community life that are integral to all aspects of community organizing through local civic society and other bodies. ANC structures, and indeed alliance structures, must be part of community policing forums, school governing bodies, youth organizations, local artist formations, and other committees aimed at building a sense of community. It is in these areas of our people's lives that the ANC must be seen, must be heard, and must be felt. All structures and leaders of the ANC must commit to be involved with building and strengthening branches. For without the ANC having strong organization, we cannot rightfully claim to be a leader of society. And in the end, we cannot rightfully claim that we hold state power effectively. Whilst the movement continues to invest in the ideological development of ANC members, it is also incumbent on all members to enhance their own ideological understanding of the history, mission, and the values of the African National Congress. As set out in our Constitution, all members must take the necessary steps to understand and carry out the aims of the African National Congress, its policies and programs, and be able to explain these to ordinary people. One very old, experienced leader in our movement said to me, he took time to ask fairly senior leaders within our ranks what the National Democratic Revolution is. And he was shocked that they were not able to explain it. And he then said, it is incumbent on us to ensure that as leaders, as members, we are able to explain the content of our struggle and its character, the character of the ANC. The ANC must foster a sense of civic responsibility and promote participatory democracy. Our branches must develop action plans for working with local government to address issues of, for example, maintenance of local municipalities' infrastructure, and assist vulnerable citizens to access government services and support where needed. It is the ANC branch leadership that must make sure that the indigent members of society do access the free basic services that the government has to offer. ANC members have the constitutional duty to fight against all forms of discrimination and intolerance and must always advocate for the rights of all people and those who are discriminated against. Even in the government of national unity, we have a clear obligation and a task to implement the policies and decisions and measures that seek to advance the national democratic revolution and, more importantly, to advance the interests of our people through the various decisions that we have taken, that we are taking, and that we will continue to take, be they related to education, be they related to health, be they related to the issue of land. These will be taken. Those who have been doubtful about the efficacy of our participation in the government of national unity, and even doubting whether we will be able to continue to execute the policies of our movement that are meant to advance the interests of our people, will have to see whether we are deviating or staying the course, and we are staying the course. We will hold the National General Council during the second half of this year, shortly after celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Freedom Charter. The NGC is an important platform to assess the suitability or effectiveness of our policies and our programs. And it is at this NGC that we will have thoroughgoing discussions on how far we have gone and how much further we still need to go ahead of our national conference in 2027. Fixing local government is an important part of the broader efforts to professionalize the public service and serving the people with dignity and integrity. We raise it here because it is the one area where we are still weakest, where the delivery of services to our people still needs to be upgraded in more ways than one. Last year, we committed to addressing the energy crisis and ending load shedding. We've now gone past 300 days without load shedding, and we commend our comrades in government. However, we must now, with the same determination, attend to those communities in townships and in rural areas who are still affected by load reduction and other power outages. And we said in January, at the January 8th statement, that water is another major challenge that we have to address, as water is life and sanitation is dignity. We must draw on the lessons learned from dealing with load shedding and urgently attend to the rapidly escalating crisis with regard to water. In dealing with the issue of water insecurity, it's quite clear that law enforcement agencies and municipalities must attend to the water infrastructure sabotage that continues, the theft of infrastructure implements that continues, and more importantly, the corruption by water tanker mafias, as well as illegal water connections. It is these that hold us back from ensuring that we do what is right for our people. But the determination that we have showed with regards to electricity, that we are also now showing in relation to logistics, as in rail, as well as our ports, as well as passenger rail, is exactly what we are now going to demonstrate when it comes to water. The program to formalize informal settlements and ensure safe and legal access to water and electricity and the provision of free basic services to indigent persons must be accelerated. And as I said, this is an area where ANC leadership at all levels, but more particularly at local level, needs to be more active. There are quite a number of indigent and poor families that do not access the free basic service offering that the state actually lays out money for. And the money that is laid out for this runs into billions of rands as part of our social welfare offering to our people. But many of them are not registered. And it behoves on ANC structures to make sure that those indigent families are brought onto the register. In the face of the high cost of living and increasing electricity tariffs, consideration needs to be given to the development of a comprehensive indigent register across all municipalities to ensure that all deserving households are actually cushioned. The ANC has long held that speeding up inclusive economic growth and creating jobs are vital to resolving the challenges of unemployment, particularly youth unemployment, the challenges of poverty, and also unemployment, especially for women and people living in our townships and in our rural areas. Public employment programs play a vitally important role in mitigating against the unacceptably high levels of unemployment. However, these programs, as we all know, are not sufficient on their own, nor are they sustainable, as jobs must be created through growth and investment by both the public and the private sectors. We will need to increase our investment in infrastructure and work, yes, with the private sector and financial institutions on finding innovative ways of funding public investment infrastructure, as well as social infrastructure. Manufacturing is the most reliable, sustained employment creator with the highest jobs multiplier. We must revitalize our industrial capacity and modernize our industrial policy to be attuned to the challenges that middle-income countries like ours are facing globally. We must build an infrastructure and export-led economy that is focused on manufacturing globally competitive goods and global business services, and invest in technological capabilities. I especially highlighted global interdependence and standing together and working together to harness the abundant resources we collectively possess and the remarkable technologies that human ingenuity has produced to overcome poverty and inequality and unemployment, especially youth unemployment and the abuse of women once and for all. I said this when I addressed the World Economic Forum session that we were offered by the World Economic Forum leadership in Davos this past Tuesday. I did so to make a point about global trade, but more importantly, to bring attention to the fact that we cannot progress without cooperation and collaboration. This becomes even more critical in these troubled times of isolationism and unilateralism. And we articulated this very clearly, and the reception to our message was rather positive, as many would-be investors and those who are investing in our country have responded fairly positively in their articulation of the message that we put forward, particularly regarding our presidency of the G20. Our January 8th statement also asked us to accelerate work to leverage our critical minerals endowment, working with other countries in the region. And as we said in Davos, we want our presidency of the G20 to be a platform to enhance our critical minerals sector through a program of green industrialization as an engine for growth and development in our sub-region as well as on our continent as a whole. Specific initiatives and interventions that are aimed at addressing youth unemployment, such as education reforms, skills development initiatives, entrepreneurship, and targeted employment programs should be strengthened. And I hope that at this Lekgotla, we will be able to come up with ideas that will broaden and deepen this intent that the African National Congress has. Strengthening the fight against crime and corruption and building safer communities remains one of our most important priorities. As we had said previously, crime undermines the gains of freedom and shared prosperity, and ultimately the NDR itself. Our combined efforts through initiatives such as Operation Sanela and Operation Valumkoti, aimed at dealing with illegal mining, and the work of law enforcement and other such organs, such as also organizations like the CPF and private security agencies, are making a difference in most reported crime. However, crimes against women and children remain unacceptably high, and we must once again draw our collective attention to the need for a greater society-wide effort to fight against the scourge of GBV and femicide. And one hopes that we will be able to have thoroughgoing discussions on this matter. ANC structures must lead in building a united front against crime and corruption, and especially gender-based violence and femicide. The ANC remains committed to building a better Africa and a better world. Despite the many crises that are unfolding in the world, the African National Congress remains committed to and guided by our principles of international solidarity, human rights, anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism, and Pan-Africanism. One of our main priorities is to strengthen SADC and to promote peace throughout our region and indeed the rest of the world. Conflicts such as those in the Sudan, the Eastern DRC, and the post-election violence in Mozambique affects our continent's development negatively. And we've seen how what has been happening, and fortunately it's dying down now in Mozambique, has had an adverse effect on our own economy. Regional and continental bodies must take urgent steps to resolve these ongoing conflicts. It is quite clear to us that even the conflict in the Eastern DRC can and should only really be resolved through engagement, through mediation, and through negotiation. A military option is simply not going to be able to resolve that conflict. South Africa has been clear that we will utilize our presidency of the G20 to advance the interests of Africa and countries of the Global South. We will do so in the understanding that countries in the G20 need deliberate and coordinated efforts to focus on inclusive growth based on responsive trade and investment to grow the incomes of poor nations and the poorest in society, and to ensure equal access to opportunities, especially for women and young people. However, our efforts will go beyond global trade and investment and include broader efforts to advance sustainable development, justice, peace, stability, and multilateralism, as well as human rights. The ANC welcomed the reports of a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas and called on all parties to abide by the agreement. The people must be allowed to return and rebuild Gaza. We continue to stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine and Western Sahara, and will continue to support them in their fight for their inalienable rights of self-determination and independence. In the year we are celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Freedom Charter, we are embarking on an important national process to build social solidarity and consensus about the future of our country. We aim to build a South Africa that belongs to all through the national dialogue that we are going to hold. And drawing on our proven history of social compacting and dialogue, we aim to engender a sense of civic responsibility and strengthen our national pride. The people will have the opportunity to discuss and develop solutions to difficult issues, and thereby creating a sense of national or common purpose. It is therefore important that the structures, and indeed the structures of the ANC and the Alliance, form content for the national dialogue and ensure that it becomes inclusive and that it truly empowers the people to shape our country's future. And in conclusion, we all know that we have held several Lekgotla, and we've developed many proposals aimed at achieving our objectives. Now, in this Lekgotla, we ask that we take a sober-minded look at where, as well as how we've been able to make progress and where we have failed to make progress. And we should look at what is possible within the applicable time frame and with the resources that are available. I want to stress the issue of the time frame as well as the resources. Quite often we come up with great proposals, great interventions, and we hardly ever pay attention to the time frame within which those initiatives will be implemented. And that tends to weaken our resolve. I'd like us at this Lekgotla, as we identify initiatives that need to be embarked upon, to have a clear line of time that it will take to implement those, and also be clear about how the resources will be amassed to ensure that it happens. The most important consideration, obviously, is to prioritize. We will not be able to do everything at the same time or even at the same pace. We must at least reach agreement on the considerations that will inform the trade-offs and the compromises we will have to be forced to make. This is a time of renewal and rebuilding, and it is indeed a time to evaluate how we strategically use our leadership of the Government of National Unity to propel advances that we need to make in the interest of our people forward. And this is the time when, yes, as government, we need to regain the trust that our people have invested in us. So as we rise from this Lekgotla, I would say that we should rise knowing that we have come up with very practical decisions that we will be able to take forward. This Lekgotla also takes place ahead of the Lekgotla we are going to have in government. It also takes place ahead of what we are going to articulate in the State of the Nation address, as well as the budget. And all these must be informed by a number of decisions that we will take here. And all these must be underpinned by a very clear intent to continue to execute the National Democratic Revolution. This is what we are about, and if anyone was ever in doubt whether we will continue executing the National Democratic Revolution, I say, sit up, wake up, and listen carefully and see what is being done. Thank you very much.